Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Miles here. I'm finally posting my duck water filtration update video. It's a super important video that's taken me forever to post, so I apologize for the delay. I've just been super busy. I've been writing a children's book of all things. Been working super hard on that. Don't worry, there's a duck in it. It's about an adventure, and hopefully maybe you guys can be some of my first readers. I plan to publish it in December, so if you're watching this in the future after it's published, I'll be sure to link it in a comment or something like that. So yeah, I've been working on that, just busy with other stuff, and editing videos like this and filming them is a hassle, so I'll be honest. But I couldn't leave you guys hanging. The main purpose of this video is to cover an issue with the swirl filter that you'll encounter over time. It's just a wear and tear thing, so don't panic. It's not gonna just like fall apart, but it is a hassle to deal with. And I finally figured out a longer term solution. It should be a permanent solution, but I want to knock on wood because I just did it. So, I don't know what the future holds. But before we get into that, I've got 2 upgrades to my duck setup that are just freaking amazing. They're so cool. And I have to share those with you first because I'm more excited about that. Well, actually, I'm equally excited about everything, okay? Both of these upgrades, they not only make your maintenance easier, but they also make your duck's quality of life better. And like, that's a win-win. So I have to share them. Hopefully you guys think they're cool too. It's not just me. So we're going to go over that. But also, we're going to go through my water changing routine from start to finish. I don't think I've done that before, and I think that could be really beneficial for a lot of you. So some of you that are considering modifying your setup to something like mine, or those of you who have done my setup that just kind of want to see how to do it. I feel like that'll be beneficial. So I'm going to do that, and then we'll get into the swirl filter fix. But if you're new here, I've got other videos that show you how to build the swirl filter, just some details about my setup as a whole. I'll link all that stuff in the description, as well as like anything I mention in this video, I'll link it in the description as well. Before we get into it, be sure to leave that like, comment. It helps out me on YouTube. It helps other people see this video, and it means a lot. When I wake up and I see like, hey, I just got some ducks, I just watched your video, that like makes my day. I know it sounds cheesy, or like if I help some of you guys fix your duck water woes, because they suck. But also, feel free to ask me any questions in the comments if you're unsure about something, or if something doesn't make sense, or if I forgot to talk about something. Just be sure to ask. That's like, in part, that's why I'm making this video. With that said, let's get started, and I hope you enjoy the video.
Don't forget to subscribe, guys. It means so much. Thanks.
So the first upgrade I'm sharing is the upgrade to their water feeder. I got this one about a year ago, and it's been great. And the reason why I got this is to always give them access to fresh, non-poopy pool water. And they just splashed around in this container and it was empty in a day or two. So that adds to your maintenance. It's a hassle, but I fixed it. I got them an automatic water feeder. This one's stainless steel. It's solid as a rock. And it's meant for dogs, but you know what? My ducks are my dogs, okay? So it's amazing, and it gives you the peace of mind like, hey, my ducks always have water. Now, if your run is really far away from where the spigot is, no need to fear. Just use a misting hose like this. That's what I did. And I also have used like the same setup for my ducks misting system. So I have a mister setup all around the run. I'm pretty sure I made a video about it. But then you connect it to a water hose that goes to your spigot. So I'll show you like the full setup, and I'll also link everything in the description, so don't panic if I'm not talking about something specifically. But just make sure you make a nice wooden bracket, or a sturdy bracket that you can attach it to the run at a proper height. You don't want it too low because then they'll just like go crazy splashing everywhere and create a big mess and waste a lot of water. But you need to make sure it's level, make sure it's at a good height, and most importantly, I made the mistake with the first feeder. I put it too close to their pool, so when they would perch on the edge of the pool, somehow poop would still get into that that little feeder. So put it further away. Make sure you do that. And you'll see this little misting hose attachment. That one in particular, I'm not linking. That one leaked right out the box. So this is me doing the initial install. I hooked it up, it leaked right away. I'll probably show you the clip. So I had to buy another one that, you know, actually worked. And the ones that work are the ones that come in the actual misting setup. So I'll link everything like I said, but just know once it's set up, it's super easy. It took me, you know, like maybe 20 minutes, if that. It worked amazingly. And most of that time is setting, you know, like the little hooks to hold on the fence. But you can see my conundrum of a water spigot here. On the right is their misting system on a water timer. The middle is the feeder, and then the left is the normal water hose. And so I run the misting line all along the fence behind the house, and then I have like a little hole drilled in the run to feed the line through. And you can see it's leaking here, but you can see it's not here. The culprit was that one little piece that I haven't linked. So also be sure to make note of those hooks that the misting line is attached to there. I'm linking those in the description as well, because the misting kit, like hooks that come with it, are terrible. They're worthless. So here I'm just testing to make sure that it refills with water properly, and it does. It works great. So I'm displacing water by removing rocks. But then I'm putting the rocks back in, because if you know ducks, if you don't have rocks in this, they're just going to splash around all day. I don't know if they're looking for bugs or just having fun, but it's going to waste a lot of water. So I'd advise putting some rocks in. And with that, your new duck water feeder is set up. It's automatic, so you don't even have to think about it, and it gives you the peace of mind, and your ducks have constant fresh water, which is awesome. Now I'm just showing a quick glimpse of my misting setup here along with the tarp. In the summer months when it's over 100 degrees, you stand out here in the shade with the misters going off, it feels like 70 degrees. So super important for keeping your ducks cool in the summer. So that's the first upgrade. Now let me show you the second one. All right, so upgrade 2 has to do with the bedding / grass of the run area. Now I've had my ducks for I think 6, maybe 7 years, coming up on 7 maybe, which is kind of crazy to think about. And one thing I've really struggled with was keeping like any sort of grass alive. Like you can see here, I put down some sod and it was working fine, but it always ends up dying off. So I've tried like everything from like pine shavings to just like you could put sand in there, but nothing works to the standard that I want it to be. And I figured out something amazing. So as you saw in this little clip, you can see that I have these little squares of artificial turf, but it's like really grass-like, and it seemed to work okay. So I invested in a sheet. However, the sheet that I got here was really cheap artificial turf. I think that whole sheet was like $20. And let me tell you, it was terrible. It was worse than the little squares. And the reason why is, one, it has like no drainage holes. Two, the material it's made out of retains heat. You can feel it when it's there, which isn't good in the summer. So I decided to make an investment, and it paid off so well. I'm like so happy. I bought some really nice artificial grass. It's got drainage holes. It looks like real grass, and like the material it's made out of doesn't retain heat. So this does several things. One, it looks amazing. Two, my ducks really love laying down on it. Three, it just kind of like keeps everything from like becoming like a muddy, poopy mess. And you just spray it off. Like it's got drainage holes, so like if you know about duck poop, if there's poop on the turf, you just spray it off and it dissolves and runs down into the dirt. So this is one of the best upgrades I've made, because I can't tell you how many hundreds of dollars I've spent on dirt, grass seed, sod, all for it not to work. Okay, this is like probably like, I'm surprised I haven't seen other people telling you to do this, because it's worked out so well. And like, I'm mind blown, because I've researched, I'm like, what material do you use for a duck run? My ducks love this. So I'm linking this exact artificial grass in the description. It is like, I strongly recommend this. I was worried because there's so many options. The one that I got works like it's fantastic. Like you can see it, and spraying it down with water, it drains great. There's no pooling of any water anywhere. So all I'm doing here is overlaying it, and you can see that this one has a ton of poop because it's got no drainage holes. And also I didn't like bother rinsing it off because it's a hassle with no drainage holes, and I knew the other turf was arriving after a couple days. So you can see I'm just lining up the edge. You guys probably won't be doing this step. You'll probably have to place your whole sheet in your run area and cut it like I did with this first piece. So you just want to make sure that you get like the flat edge up against the flat edge of your run. You know, like put it in a corner of the run for your starting point. Get a really sharp razor blade because anything somewhat dull makes the job a lot harder. So now that I've got my piece cut to shape, look how long that grass is. Seriously, it's amazing. We're going to put it inside the run. And just the other day, I had actually put down some dirt when I did the first, like, cheaper turf. And I mainly did the cheaper turf to test, like, the idea of having a full sheet in there, if it would work or not. But I put down some dirt first, and I made sure that there weren't any, like, awkward dips and stuff. You want a pretty level surface. You know, maybe like have it even slope down on the edges so the water runs away if it rains a lot or something. But now I'm just replacing this, putting it in place, and then I'm securing it with all the stones, making sure there's no like places where there's like not bubbles, but you know, like where it's lifting up. So I'm pretty much making sure it's tight on each edge so it lays flat properly. And I've got the rocks by that fountain, by the water feeder, that I'm putting over the turf itself. And one thing to note about the water feeder that I didn't mention is that you do want like kind of like a pile of rocks below it, especially if you don't have like the turf, because you don't want the ducks to dig with the water, because they'll essentially use the water as like their paint to dig a hole and the dirt as their canvas. So they'll just continually dig holes and create like a muddy mess. So you want to kind of prevent that. And that's the best way I found to do it. Just put like a good pile of rocks in the area below the feeder. You can see I'm out of breath. I probably turned my heavy breathing down because the microphone is right by my mouth. So it's like super dramatized. I'm just putting the stones back in place. The final touches. Getting their little ramp back in place. And I think that is pretty much it. And we've officially replaced their turf. Look how amazing that looks compared to the other one. I am so happy with this upgrade. Like super happy. And I'm so excited to share it with you guys. I hope you guys do this, because if you've struggled with getting like a good substrate for your run, this is going to solve everything. It's so amazing. And you're not going to have to worry about it dying off, or it's just great. Now for the infamous duck water change. It's really difficult when you first get ducks, but it doesn't have to be. So hopefully this helps you become more efficient at it. I went from 2 hours to 20 minutes. So a big part of the thing is this little drain right here that I'm flipping, first step, it saves you a ton of time. And the reason is you're using the power of the pump to push all the water out through that drain and away from creating any mess. Instead of just pulling that drain plug in the pool, this saves you a ton of time. So if you have this set up, you can utilize that, and it's super beneficial. From there, I turn on the water. I gotta figure out my conundrum again. I'm like, which one is it? And then grab the water hose. Gotta deal with Blue. Blue always likes bugging me when I'm working. He's such a brat. Here, I wait until it drains down pretty much all the way to the second pump, But if I were to do a partial water change, I would wait until it drained right above that pump with the light, and then I'd cut off the water. I'd wash out the swirl filter, which you'll see in a minute, and then I just refill it. So you can do a partial water change and that'll take you like 10 minutes. But while this pool's draining, I rinse out all the inside, just get away all the duck poop and stuff from any of the ground, just to keep everything nice and tidy. And I'm actually thinking about creating like a little dedicated dirt area right there where all those rocks are, just so they've got a place, like they can still do it right now, but I want them to have like a little place to dabble in the mud when it rains. So here I'm just rinsing out our new automated water feeder. I think this is really good to do anytime you decide to rinse out anything or do a water change. It just gives you like a fresh start, so the water's not stale. They have like a fresh new batch of water, even though it refills. Now is where it starts to get a little dirty. We're cleaning out the in-pool filter. And the only reason why I really have this one is because it has a light. It still helps filter clearly. You'll see in a minute. Sorry, duck poop warning. So I just rinse out everything in here. Pretty straightforward. Now, one thing, if you do get this exact filter, it's been great. I've had this for years, knock on wood. I did have like the UV light of it short out, so I just have that part unplugged now. But for how long it's lasted, it's definitely worth it. So if you do get the same one, you'll notice that my green filter element is missing. I decided to just pull that out because it's one more thing to clean and it doesn't really make any difference. So it just makes my job easier. You got to think of it like that over time. You're like, yeah, I can take this away from my chores. So here I'm just rinsing everything as the pool is still draining with that other pump pumping all the water out. And it's nice to do while the pool still has some water in it, because you can kind of use it almost like a river, you know, to wash clothes. Not that I've done that before, but you know, it's like the same idea. So here I'm just making sure where the pump sucks in the water is clear of any kind of debris. Lots of feathers get stuck in there. And then from there, I detach the pump because that gets really clogged. And you just gotta spray it out. But be careful here because you can easily spray yourself. You'll get the hang of it, but you don't want to spray yourself when it's like duck poop. So just one little spray there and we're good to go. And you can hear the large pump starting to make noise. When that happens, I pull the drain plug and I go shut it off. But first I'm reassembling this pump, putting all the elements back together. This is ready to go. It's cleaned. Now time to pull the drain plug. And I could technically let this pump go and it'll drain the entire pool, but that's not the best way to treat your pump. So I just unplug it, let it drain on its own. From here, I just rinse out all the other dirty water that kind of like accumulates randomly. Make sure to get it all drained out. You'll likely have to like pull out some feathers and stuff. It just depends. Now, I do have the scrubber that's super convenient, but on my pool there, I actually had an issue with a natural algae fix that was supposed to take care of algae, but instead it created like a chemical reaction that bonded itself to not only the vinyl of the pool, but also inside the swirl filter. So I have these ugly stains. I could scrub them off, but it's just cosmetic. There's nothing like aside from the aesthetic. So it doesn't bother me. I'm just telling you guys so you don't think it's filthy, because it's just algae and some actual stains from this chemical reaction that I tried using. So in this container is 50-50 bleach and water. I do this one to sanitize, but also this kills the algae. And if this pool weren't stained, doing this, the pool would have like zero algae and it'd look brand new. So one thing to note on the pool itself is these pools last a year, 2 years if you're lucky. and then they'll eventually rip. So it's good to have two, like a backup pool on hand. From there, I empty the swirl filter. So I remove the clamp, take off the lid. I clean the lid off as well. And then you heard me say it's the treated one. I recently sprayed the clamp itself with an anti-rust inhibitor. So I recommend doing that. I'll link that in the description, and I'll talk about that in the next part as well. But I'm just draining out the swirl filter. And what's important here is the way a swirl filter works, all the heavy waste accumulates at the bottom. So you need to agitate it with the water so it all drains out that drain hole. If you don't do this, when the water drains, you're still going to have a clump of waste at the bottom. So make sure you agitate it until it's drained out. And here Blue is bugging me. I'm trying to work Blue. He's such a brat. Does anyone else's ducks do this? I turn my back. He comes at me like a velociraptor. I turn around and he runs away. Really funny. So from there, I do the same bleach procedure inside the swirl filter. I try to be careful not to get too much on the silicone bead because that'll like eventually deteriorate it. You can even see a few pieces hanging down. It happens over time, but you know, like if you take care of it and you're gentle, it should last you for quite a while. So we'll let the bleach sit. After maybe 5 to 10 minutes, we'll end up rinsing it off. So here I'm doing the pool, just giving it one extra little coat. And you might have to do this procedure a couple times, depending on how long it's been since it's like been deep cleaned. Because the bleach part, I don't do every time. I'll do it like every other time or every third time, depending on the algae. So from here, I like to double check the food. Generally, I know when it's going to be empty, but I always just triple check. Also, just in case like some ants happen to get in there. I haven't had that issue, knock on wood, but I always just check their food. And then Blue tries to get me again. He's such a brat, I tell you. I'm like, bro, I'm working. Why are you such a pest? I'm trying to give you fresh water. So I put it on, I believe it's called the center mode. And that acts as like a water scrubber. So you can see some of it's coming up, but it's still pretty stuck on there. I could have let it sit longer, but I get the sprayer again, do another layer, and then I let that sit for a little while. And be generous with your spray if you have like a decent amount of algae. One thing I've just like accepted, I don't think I'll ever win against the algae unless I used bleach actively in my setup, which I can't because the ducks drink the water. But luckily it's just like more so a cosmetic annoyance. So here I just rinsed out the bleach on the swirl filter. Now I put the lid back on, clamp it up, and then we're ready to get the pool clean and start filling it back up. There's Blue again, being a brat. So here I'm doing the same water scrub procedure. You can see the difference. It's starting to come off. But there's still certain areas it's just caked on there from that chemical reaction. I might even link that product specifically in the description, just so no one happens to like try it, because it really made a mess. So in case you haven't seen my other videos, so you know how my system works, this filter is a standalone one. It has a light, that's why I keep it. This other pump pumps the water to the swirl filter, and then from the swirl filter, that goes into a pressure filter. From there, it comes back to that blue return line. And the most important part that does all the work, that makes the most difference for a duck setup, is the swirl filter. You need everything for the system to work, but the most effective piece is a swirl filter. And there was someone in my comments that was saying that they were planning to do my setup, but with multiple swirl filters. I already told her, but I would definitely advise against that, because you think of a system when you're making it. Here I'm just closing the drain plug, by the way, and then I'm moving that return line to point out. But yeah, so you want to think of your system as like, how how few points of failure can I have? And if you add 3 swirl filters, there's a chance that one of them is going to leak. You know, like there's so many points that a swirl filter could leak. So you want to keep your system as simple as possible. And all having more swirl filters does is it's the equivalent of having like 3 trash cans. You have more place to put your trash. That's it. So what we're doing, we're obviously refilling the water. We wait a while until it gets above the filters. And one thing to note, the filter that's a standalone one, be sure to fill that with water prior to filling the pool, because otherwise it'll just float. So from there, we turn it on and we wait until it starts filling up. But don't forget to close your drain plug because, or your drain valve, I guess you'd say, because otherwise you're never going to fill your pool and it'll just continually drain. Sometimes if there's some like poo left in the swirl filter, I'll leave it open and let it run for a little bit just to clear it out, because the pump can do it a lot faster than you with a water hose. The last thing I'll do is on this Laguna pressure filter, it has these really cool scrubbing brushes on the inside that you can scrub from the outside. So don't do this like 20 times. Do it like 3 to 5 max on each side. And I come back in and you'll see how dirty the return line water is. You can see it's like super dirty. So that's why we pull that return line out, because we just changed the water. We don't want that going back in there. And here's a little clip just to show you how I wired the automatic feeder. Once the water runs clear, you're good to go. You can put that return line back in and finish filling the pool, and you're done. And that's it, guys. That's my water changing routine from start to finish. It takes about 20 minutes once you get the hang of it, and I'm sure it's going to save a lot of you guys some time, so be sure to let me know in the comments if it does. And one thing to mention, if you want to do that partial water change, you drain the pool down to like right where that filter level is with the light, right above it, shut off the pumps, and if you want to, you can clean out the swirl filter and you can extend your drain intervals, your big changes, you know, weeks out. So for me, I just do like a regular change like I'm showing you here once a week. Sometimes if I look at the water and I'm like, it's not that dirty, I'll do a partial change and I'll extend, you know, like another week. So it just gives you that flexibility, which just like makes your duct maintenance that much easier. So I really hope this helps you guys out a lot. And now onto the swirl filter fix. So the drum that we use for the swirl filter is really great. The lid, however, over time, it becomes brittle and it develops cracks and then it leaks water. It's super frustrating, and the way I've been handling this for the past while now is to simply use a plastic welder and patch those cracks. Now, it's worked with mixed success. So as you can see here, I've got several lids. That last one I went crazy just to see like if I could fix it on a more permanent basis. Eventually it'll either crack elsewhere or it'll just leak in that same spot. And it becomes quite expensive because the only way for you to get a lid, aside from waiting 10 weeks for lids individually with shipping costs that make it the price of a barrel, is to just order another barrel. So I've purchased, I believe, like 5 of these barrels over the 5 years that I've had this setup. And so I go through a lid a year, and it just becomes really expensive over time. Like, it's not the worst thing, but it's really frustrating. Initially, I was gonna show a DIY on how to patch the lid with the plastic welder, but this is only a temporary fix. So you can do it if you're in a pinch and you have a plastic welder. It's nice to have on hand just in case. However, I think I figured out a really permanent solution, which is why I'm making this video, and I feel confident sharing this with you guys. And I'm about to tell you. Are you ready? So I took a chance and I purchased a really amazing metal drum. And I was prepared to make a brand new swirl filter just out of the metal drum, which was going to be a hassle. But I was like, you know what? Maybe there's some kind of industry standard where the lids will fit on, you know, different drums of different brands. And while it's a really incredibly tight fit, it actually fits. Just keep in mind that when I say it's a really tight fit, I mean it. This is a metal lid, so when you're pushing down that clamp compared to the plastic lid, there's a ton of resistance. Like, you have to use quite a bit of strength. So I hope it gets better over time once it's conformed to that shape, because it, like you can see if you look at the lip of that lid, I kind of used the clamp and went around and compressed it to try to make putting that clamp on easier. Now this is actually the moment of truth, putting it on the assembled swirl filter. And I was quite stressed because if this didn't work, I didn't know what I was gonna do, honestly. Just keep buying the barrels and have like a million of them after a few more years. As you can see here, I'm really struggling to get this on because that rubber gasket is also on the swirl filter, so it just makes it even tighter. So you really have to be patient here, and you gotta focus on getting the lip of the lid and the lip of the drum in the groove of the clamp. And the difficulty is that it's kind of like when you get one side in, the other side pops out. So I actually had to take off my camera because it's like right in front of my chest and my vision, so I could get this to work. Initially, I legit thought it wasn't gonna fit. That's how tight it is. I was really worried, and I'm like, man, I'm gonna have to build this metal swirl filter, show a DIY on that. Hopefully that even works because it has a different style of clamp. But I took the camera off, and luckily I got it to work. Now, I'm hoping that someone who tries this can confirm that it works for them as well, just to reassure the viewers of this video that this is a viable fix. For me personally, so far it's been working great. It's been 2 weeks without any leaks, knock on wood, you know. I'm about to do my first full water change. That's gonna tell me if removing the lid and putting it back on gets easier. Because like I said, it was a really tight fit, so I'm hoping that that part kind of gets better. In terms of price, I got ripped off personally. So I spent $70 on the drum and then $90 on shipping. And that's because I purchased directly through the manufacturer. Since then, I've shopped around for you guys and I found a really good deal. I believe the barrel's 50 or 60 bucks, and then the shipping is around $30 depending on where you live, which is awesome. On top of that, I have a link in the description that you're supposed to get $20 additionally off. So someone who purchases this in the future, please let me know in the comments that that link promises correctly, because I don't want to be linking stuff and then it like not even work. That's just silly. But one last thing, when you do get your new lid, be sure to treat it with a rust inhibitor. So treat that and the clamp. I'll link that also as well in the description. And then I have that drum cover on as well to protect from rainwater accumulating, since there's like kind of a lip. The last thing you want is to put in all this effort only for it to rust from the rain. So that's it. That's my swirl filter update. And with that, guys, I think we are done. I've covered everything I wanted to cover. I hope you found a lot of it beneficial. If you do any of this, be sure to let me know in the comments, because that means so much to me. And if you haven't built your swirl filter yet, just keep in mind that this particular issue doesn't happen for like over a year after you build it. So it's nothing to be immediately concerned about. I just want to share the long-term issues that you'll likely face. And the solution is super simple. And if you do end up purchasing the drum, be sure to let me know that you got your $20 off, as well as if the lid actually works for you, if you're able to get it on as well. Because it is tight, like I said, but I feel like it'll work just fine. You just gotta use a little of that elbow grease. If you have any questions, be sure to ask me in the comments. The whole point of this video is to help you guys out. Don't forget to leave that like and subscribe if you haven't already. And with that, I will see you guys in the next one.